Woodall?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Does me good to see you sitting in the chairman's chair.
Feels good. I was thinking about a coup here.
When you want to put the Hastings portrait up on the wall, you have my support to make that happen. That I had anticipated enjoying this hearing when it came around. Didn't know it was going to come quite this quickly. The two of you are, in my estimation, are two of the most thoughtful members on the floor of the House. And if anybody could come together and find common ground on what are very sticky, political, easy to inflate the level of partisanship around, you would be the two I'd pick to try to sort that out. And I can't tell you how much I feel like we've missed yet another opportunity to see the two of you sitting there opposed to one another here, as opposed to congratulating one another on how well you work together through what I know would have been a very difficult process. My friend from California, Ms. Torres, referenced race as why folks would oppose this bill. I find that evidence that we have reached that heightened politicized area. I don't think, in fact, I think the ranking member closed with wanting to, I wrote it down, Mr. Davis, I don't want to misquote you. Every American vote should be counted and protected. I don't think that's remotely divisive. I think that's something that you and the chairwoman share. I think we all share that. I represent a majority-minority district. I think I had the closest election in the Congress. Starting at election night, as the reporters called, I said, I'm not worried about a thing because I know the Democrats on our election board and I know the Republicans on our election board, and they would sooner cut off their hand than be involved in any sort of shenanigans around here. I don't know how the vote's going to go, but however it goes, I'm prepared to live with it because I know these people. We're in a community together, and we count on one another. I know every community is not that fortunate, and so I very much appreciate the effort to try to give everyone else the confidence that I have in the election process in Georgia. But I am struck by the rush on something that is so serious and something that could be so bipartisan. Help me, I've looked at the section that you've referenced, Ms. Lofgren, and it appears to read exactly as you said it does: enhanced disclosure information on donors, mandatory identification of individuals for small donors. But there was an amendment that was offered by Republicans in the markup to do exactly that. How can it be that we're in the Rules Committee days later talking about what was really fundamental and apparently a shared value, and that doesn't come out in a committee hearing that folks are on the same page on this issue? I can't understand how a Republican amendment to do exactly this gets rejected. And folks would say it gets rejected because it doesn't do this. I'm just, you know how legislative drafting goes. What I'm looking at just says insert here. I can't tell what section it gets inserted in. I don't know if it does it or not, but I did want to clarify one thing. What it does say is each authorized committee of a participating candidate under this title shall elect to include in their reports these identifications. I've never seen that before, shall elect. Either you shall or either you may elect. But I've never seen shall elect before. I don't know what that means and if that's a part of the challenge here.
Well, as we know, we have Ledge Counsel who does these wonderful things, so I don't want to speak for them, but it's our understanding that this is mandatory.
Okay.
Mr. Woodall, maybe the confusion you have is the reason why Ledge Counsel allowed us to draft an amendment doing just that. Maybe they were confused too.
It is important. I've seen those candidates, and I don't want to offend any of my colleagues here who engage in that kind of campaigning, but those folks who spend $5 million in direct mail so they can raise $100,000. They chew through every dollar that they raise from that little old lady who believed in them, and they just plow it back in. I can imagine that kind of harvesting. There's a cap on what I can receive back in matching, and that cap is $1 million?
It's 50% of the top 20 winning candidates in the election prior, what was spent.
In the case of 2018, Mr. Woodall, then you would have been able to receive $4.5 million.
Wow. So it does encourage folks to do those mail campaigns where they're not raising any money at all, but they're bringing in contributions that they're spending directly because now the government's going to give me a six-time match. I just ran the most expensive election of my 5 cycles and spent just over $1 million. But I have consistently been the one who has more small dollar contributions than anyone else in the election. That's how I won my primary to begin with. You're saying that I would now be running $5 million races because there'd be this free money that the government is sending my direction. I don't know how that's going to advantage the people of the 7th District, but I'll wait to see. Ms. Lofgren, let me ask you about CBO scores because I serve on the Budget Committee, and I know I know you all were just one of many committees that got the reference. The CBO score that I'm looking at appears to only score the part of the bill that's within House administration jurisdiction. Is that right?
Let me see. Do we have the CBO letter?
And Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask the CBO score be submitted for the record.
I don't have that. Oh, here we are.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
No, I think it's scored the entire bill. It's just as reported by the committee.
Well, were you all able to report all the titles that were not in your jurisdiction? I would guess those were stripped out.
Good point, good point. We'll have to clarify that for you.
Because that is the clarity I was looking for. Had it been scored as it was drafted,
Correct.
Then we would have gotten everything. But scored as reported, we're only getting your slice of the pie. And my reading of the CBO report says that's $2.4 billion over 5 years. Your slice of the pie.
I think that's correct.
Spending.
But I do believe that in the manager's amendment that we will offer, we have proposed some changes on the authorization for some of the grants so that it would be subject to appropriations instead of, and that we've shared that with CBO, whether they will actually be able to give us a report or not. We will have to hear from them.
Now that's $2.4 billion subject to appropriation. Is there anything in here about changing budget caps, or that's all getting stuffed? That's $2.4 billion stuffed under the current budget caps, which is going to have to come from other priorities. We're not making any headroom to spend this money. We're going to have to take it from somewhere else.
I don't know the answer to that, sir. I'll have to get back to you on that.
So if I have the one CBO report that has the House Administration section, because you all have studied the bill in ways that I have not, do you know what the Judiciary Committee's estimated cost is, their section of the bill?
They didn't have much, and I don't think that there would be the redistricting provision was within the Judiciary Committee, but the position of the CBO is that mandates required to promote a constitutional right are not scored, and so I don't think there would be a score to that provision.
And what about the OGR's section, the Government Reform Committee? Is there any idea about what their section might cost?
I do not have the answer to that, but the big pay for was the federal holiday for federal workers. And as I mentioned earlier, we took the advice of our colleagues in the minority on the committee, and we're proposing to delete that.
I have not gotten through the entire CBO score, but I get the sense that had they had more time, they would have done a different score. Was there any suggestion that CBO did not have the time to?
I did not hear that, but I will say the discussion has been at a staff level. I didn't go over to CBO.